Like, I was going to tap out, I'll be like your flunky, like what do you need? You had no choice, all right? If you were in the family, you had to go through this. So you got on-the-job training, and then it was an every man for himself, king of the mountain, you're the last man standing, you win. John, if you need to stand up and stretch out, man, go for it, bro.
I think I would go.
Yeah, get all day. I got you, brother. Thank you for coming.
Nope.
Don't forget your coat, boss.
I'm saying.
All right, so now, to maintain power, the other thing he does is, while he understands that Christians are people of the Scripture, I don't really like Christians, because that creates division in my empire. Those Europeans are like, oh, Eastern Orthodox Christianity, yeah, whatever. Well, I can't just go and get them, because that'll look bad. So what he begins to do is draft or conscript a certain number of boys from each province. The Christian provinces, more boys were selected. So we want to keep those guys, leave you alone, but we want to keep you sort of weak. They will be brought in and trained as the Sultan's personal troops. They will become known as the Janissaries. And the Janissaries were hardcore warriors, like Spartan young men, you know, from a young age, 6, 7, 8, 9, to be the personal bodyguard of the Sultan. So if they go to war, if there is a province that's rebelling, the Janissaries wore all black silken robes, black dark helmets, and the saying was, when you saw the Janissaries, you were looking at death. Like they're not playing two-hand touch. This is full contact. They serve the Sultan as his bodyguards, some as advisors, some as governors out in unrural provinces. And so in the Janissaries and this big army, nobody really bothered the Ottomans, and nobody really caused too much dissension. And since the Janissaries, they were well looked after, trained, fed, housed, clothed, they got the absolute very best of everything, and they will be brought up as Muslims. So they are fanatically loyal to the Sultan. You did not want to mess with the Sultan if there was several Janissaries around. They were like we call the Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers of their day, Marine Force Recon. We don't want to leave anybody out. And here they are parading in nice, beautiful colors, red, white, and blue. When they go into combat, we're going all black. So anyway, all right. So anyway, poor Suleiman. Even though he tries, and we got this little Hunger Games fratricide thing going on, his guys, I guess because he was one of those gentlemen of vision and power, and he was all over the place. Well, he did have that succession, that on-the-job training. When his descendants took power, they kind of like relaxed. Well, we finally made it, so now I don't have to like do anything. I could go check on that, but I'll go. It's kind of rainy and cold out. I'll go tomorrow. You know, tomorrow's Friday. You know what? I'll get up early on Saturday and go and do it. All right, I'll beat all the coupon shoppers at Harris Teeter. I'll get up early. I'll get up at 4:45, and I will be there, and I will get everything. And you know what? I'll just go before church on Sunday. I'm just not feeling it. And little by little, things begin to fall apart. Coupled with that, the main agricultural regions of the Ottoman Empire, a massive drought and famine hit. And so all of a sudden they're starving. They cannot depend on the Nile River Delta in Egypt, the Tigris-Euphrates River Valley, even the Aegean coast of Turkey. Nothing grows. A massive famine hits. And it wipes out a lot of the population. And it's at this time that Europe begins to make quantum leaps forward in technology. The Latins sail on their sailing ships. Bigger, faster, stronger ships and cannons. They begin iron production. And so early on, the Ottomans are dominant By the 1700s, they stay steady while Europe leaps ahead. Once Europe hits the Industrial Revolution, it's game, set, and match for everybody else. In their day, they were awesome, but they don't industrialize. They hit those crop failures, and unfortunately, the Ottoman Empire begins to weaken. It'll hold on. It'll stay clinging to power until 1918. But by 1750, 1800, they're rotting from the inside out. A group will rebel over here, and they'll hammer. Maybe that. One rebels over here, and they run over here, and they put that one down, and another fire breaks out over there. So they're ping-ponging back and forth, and they lose control of their empire, especially Egypt in the late 1800s, in a brilliant bit of subterfuge. The French have the idea to build the Suez Canal. Dig a ditch from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. Awesome, great. You guys are in trouble. Who's going to pay for it? Well, we got this.
Mexico, didn't someone say Mexico?
Don't say Mexico. All right. We're going to pay for this, and we're part of the Ottoman Empire, and then the Ottoman Empire goes broke. Someone says, well, why don't we turn it into like one of those like European corporation things? We'll have people invest in it, and then they can make money off of it. Who is all over that? All right. Prime Minister Disraeli goes to Parliament and says, guys, I need a bunch of money. What for? Well, we're going to buy the Suez Canal. Well, what do you mean we're? Well, we are the British government, but we're going to create these things like fake corporations. They might exist, they might not, I don't know. And under like 45 or 50 different companies, the British government buys 52% of the stock in the Suez Canal. The Ottomans and the French get their money, they finish the canal, the British ship pulls up and says, okay guys, we're ready to go through the canal. And the Ottomans say, well, you owe us X amount of dollars to use the canal. And Prime Minister Disraeli says, well, actually, no British ships don't, because you know who owns the stock in your company? That would be merry old England. And the Ottomans are like, oh, man. British do some stuff, man. I mean, they're sly about it, but like, oh, look at that. Anyway, so. And the Ottoman empires lose their money, and they will eventually fade. You guys got one more left in you? Yeah. All right. I'd love to tell this story. Mark, you may remember this story. Japan. Japan has been over there being Japanese for like hundreds of years. After a great ruler named Minamoto Yoritomo, a shogun, takes power, the Japanese believe they have refined society to its all-time height. And so they begin what's called the national policy of seclusion. Nobody will go out for nearly 600-700 years, and even fewer people will come back in. A few Portuguese and Dutch missionaries, that's it. And while the rest of the world is growing, Japan is just drinking sake, raking those pebbles, feeding koi, watching cherry blossoms, practicing with their samurai swords. They're just hanging out. Until the 1600s, we get a little bit of dissension where there's a civil war. The emperor will never be in question, but there was a battle over who was going to be the next shogun. Shogun is really the executive of Japan. And there's three big samurai. There's a guy named Hideyoshi, there's a guy named Nobunaga, and there is a guy named Tokugawa Ieyasu. And so Hideyoshi's the big dog. He's the shogun. Nobunaga is his assistant, his vassal, and Tokugawa is his samurai. And there's a story that the three are sitting around, and there's this big, massive samurai warlord battle. And the three are sitting around right before the final battle. It's early in the morning, they're sitting around a fire, and a songbird lands on a branch. Hideyoshi looks up at it and says, that songbird doesn't sing, I'm going to kill it. Nobunaga says, now if that songbird doesn't sing, I'm going to make it sing. Tokugawa says, well, I'm going to wait for that songbird to sing on its own, because when it's ready, its song will be the most beautiful of all. And Tokugawa reveals his master plan. He's the third in charge. But he looks at Nobunaga, and he looks at Hideyoshi and says, man, these two, they're like dumb. Right? Why am I working for them? So I just got to be patient. And during the big, massive, samurai warlord battle, while he works for them, he kind of keeps his guys in the back. And while Nobunaga and Hideyoshi go in and do all the hard fighting, by the time they're done, they're broken and they're bleeding and they're tired. Tokugawa takes them both out. So why did you do that? You're supposed to be their loyal vassal. And he says, because they were not good for Japan. All right? It's about the songbird, gentlemen. We got to take this slow and we got to take it easy. Who wins the race? The tortoise, not the hare. And so Tokugawa Ieyasu decides that he is going to create a new capital. He's going to build a new city in what is Edo, modern-day Tokyo. And he's going to redefine the organization of all Japan. And here is like a big painting. It's in the Japanese National Museum. The red troopers here kind of hanging out are Tokugawa's guys. And he's letting everybody get into this giant melee. And he's just kind of wait, hold up, hold up, hold up. Kind of like William Wallace and the Braveheart when they got when the cavalry's hold, just wait, time's not right. And then he unleashes them. And so what Tokugawa does is he redraws the domains or the boundaries inside Japan. In the middle, this red one, he digs red, red's his color. He chooses the biggest one, the most profitable one for himself, and he surrounds the emperor's palace. And so district number 1 is his most loyal samurai, his most trusted samurai, and his close family members. They are going to defend him, the shogun, and the emperor. And there's 229 daimyos, or wealthy lords, that he's going to move around because he can't trust them. He could kill them all, but that might create some instability. The second domain, this one here, he fills with some of his family members, distant, cousins or nephews that were related to him, not quite super trusted, but enough. And way on the edges, the remote edges of the empire, the farthest away, he puts the daimyo that fought against him in this massive battle. And his theory is, if you're going to attack me or the emperor, you have to fight from the outer edge through concentric rings of defense to get to me. And if we're invaded by those idiot Chinese over there in China who don't like us, the first guys that are going to get it are the guys that I don't like anyway. So go to it, fellas. And he knows he might not be able to depend on their loyalty, so he draws up new legal codes. Very similar to Suleiman, they want to be preventative in nature. Let's get this right before we get started. And what I really love that he does is he creates this thing known as the hostage system. Louis XIV did it, and Peter the Great did it in the Winter Palace. If you were an enemy, or a noble, you were required to build a house or a chateau in Versailles or in the Winter Palace. I will keep my friends close and my enemies closer, and I cause you to spend a lot of your money. You've got to keep up with the Joneses, and I will slowly bankrupt you and keep an eye on you. Tokugawa takes it a step further. He called it the alternate year attendance plan. 1 year, you and your family stay here in Edo with me. And what the shoguns in Japan called the Bakufu. Bakufu means 10 governments. The government is wherever the shogun pitches his tent. He's like, well, I'm tired of camping. I'm too old. All right? Like my version of camping is called like Hilton. All right? All right? Preferably one of those ones with happy hour or something. All right? So that's how we're doing it. So that's just kidding. I still do it. I'm good. Anyway, so, all right. So he said, you guys stay here with me, And then the next year, you, daimyo, upper lord, governor, ruler, goes back to your domain. But your family is going to stay here. If there's any shenanigans, well, the wife and the kids, I'll find a really nice crappy job for them. If I don't turn them into like shark chum. So it's up to you how you are going to do this. And he says, what I want to do is look for men of ability. Just because you're of noble birth doesn't mean you're a good ruler. What is the definition of being a noble? Someone who does the right thing, not the popular thing. I don't care what your last name is. I care how intelligent you are and how you treat the people. So I want men of ability to work in my government. Can I trust you? And so under Tokugawa, the Japanese economy, which keep in mind has got no cultural diffusion for hundreds of years, begins to flourish. Things begin to take off. Resources that were used in all the fighting, making weapons and armor, are now turned into farm implements. Garden hose, shovels, rakes, plows. They're able to clear more land, till more soil. They begin to plant rice, champa rice, which comes over from Vietnam, which grows a higher yield. Now they're harvesting 2 crops of rice per year, and the Japanese population begins to explode. Now that we've got a surplus of food, we have time to sit down and think of stuff. What would make that easier? Maybe instead of getting a bucket and carrying it all the way back here full of water, maybe I can build an aqueduct or some type of pump or a water wheel, labor-saving devices. And as a result, he begins to practice a sort of a laissez-faire economy. If you were a noble and had a really good artisan, maybe a good blacksmith, or someone who worked with metal, or a good tailor, or a cobbler, you could pay the emperor his taxes, and whatever's left, you can sell on your own and keep the money. So if you're a good artisan and you don't mind going abroad and selling stuff, man, you can make money now. So the smartest samurai, you guys are going to laugh at this, but it's true. These are old world traditional samurai going back to the 800s and 900s. The smarter ones begin to look for the best artisans that they could find, and they hire them to come and live in their villages. Their names are, shockingly, Honda, Toyota, Kawasaki, or Suzuki, and these guys become prominent members. They switch from being, they're still warlords, but now they're starting to run businesses, and they will move themselves up in the Japanese economy. And if you look at the Imperial War Council right before World War II, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Honda, Toyota, it's the same guys. They got on board early. Dude, we can make some money. Well, I want you, and you can swing a hammer, and you can get a forge, and let's go. Make some stuff right now. So here it comes all the way back. At this time, they are converting. Here's where the alternate year attendance plan pays off. These daimyo going all the way out to their domain and back, there weren't any roads in Japan. The geography was too tough. Mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley. They went on ships. But now they've got to travel over land so the shogun's guys can watch them. They begin to build infrastructure. They cut down forests. They build roads. They build bridges. And where before you couldn't travel overland in Japan, now you can. The merchants hop on that. We speed communication. We speed trade. We send the army around. And Japan is doing awesome. But just like Peter the Great, just like Suleiman, just like Akbar, the wealthier you were, the more prominent your position in the government, the better your behavior had to be. If you were caught as one of Tokugawa's men publicly drunk, you were put down on this table with like wooden blocks on your hands and on your knees, and you were paddled, and guys would jump up and down on it, all right? And they had tiny, not to like totally crush them, but just so people knew there was a mark in your hands and knees were heavily bandaged because you did not know how to be humble. You misused your power and authority, so I'm going to hammer you. With great power comes great responsibility. You blow it, I'll find there's a whole lot of guys waiting for that job. And so Japan is doing great. They think that they've mastered this. Our economy's growing, we got roads and bridges, things are blowing up. You know what, it just can't, it's like the 1980s, right? No offense, Mark, those of us who were alive, you know it just can't, it can't get any better than this, man. It's awesome, look at this. We got big hair, we got fluorescence, Rambo, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, Errol Hall and John Oates, all right, Michael Jackson, all right. It can't really get any better than this, right? It just really can't. So, you know what, guys? Things are so awesome, we're going to shut it down. We've made some improvements. Everybody else in the world is an idiot. Let's focus on being Japanese. And a second national policy of seclusion sets down, and nobody goes out of Japan or into Japan until 1853, when this little guy in a steamship named Commodore Perry from the United States of America sails himself into Tokyo Bay and says, hey, there's this thing called imperialism. We want to trade with you. And the Japanese say, no, what do you got that we don't have? Our life is perfect. Well, poof, a cannonball is fired from the ship over the emperor, one of the emperor's palaces, and it explodes. Now, deep inside Japanese mythology is the concept of a dragon. What does a steamship look like? Chug, 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 chug. Kaboof! Here comes. Man, those Americans got themselves a dragon out there in the ocean. So the next day, 6 samurai come to escort the admiral to meet the emperor. They said, you can bring 6 Marine guards with you. He says, I'm good. He draws his sidearm and fires a couple shots into a tree, and the Japanese say, oh my God, the guy's got a small smoking dragon. He's got like Mushu from Mulan wrapped around his hand, all right? And the Japanese say, oh my God, when we thought we've perfected society, everybody else has grown through quantum leaps. So the Japanese will undergo what's called the Meiji Restoration, where they will go from old world feudalism. Within 30 years, they're fully industrialized, the fastest industrial movement in world history. Now, they had help. Great Britain had started it. Germany and the United States had come along, and everybody kind of gave them the blueprint, but the Japanese did it. So we've got one more absolute monarchy to talk about, the great Ming Dynasty. I will tack them on. It's 8:30. I guess I told too many stories. I will tack them on to next week, the grand finale, which is, I think, fascinating, but a lot of people don't like to talk about it in schools because it makes everybody feel bad. In order to get all of this wealth to become absolute, we've got to get it from somewhere. And in order to get it, we need people to do the labor. I'm not going to go into the sugarcane field or into the silver mines. So next week is the great transatlantic trade, age of imperialism. We will use some chemistry to kill 48 million Native Americans and start the Atlantic slave trade. So, and we'll throw in the Ming Dynasty. So thank you guys. Do you have any questions? Man, this hour and a half goes so fast.
Yeah.
Any questions tonight? Anybody good? No? All right.
What would it do in a couple thousand years?
What's that?
I'm exhausted.
You are.
I built the Russian thing, I did the Ottoman thing,
Ottoman
the Japanese thing. I mean, my God, I mean,
You're all
I'm
over.
exhausted.
And what's crazy, it's all done at the same
time.
It's all done at the same time.
What
Everybody's
year to
doing
what
the same-
year was all this?
This is like 1500 to like 1700, 1725.
Yeah.
That's when it's all going down. So, and what's funny is a couple of these groups communicated, like the Mughals and the Ottomans and maybe the Chinese, but nobody else. Well, the European guys, but they were competitive. It wasn't like, you know, collaborative, like, hey, what are you doing? It was all one-upmanship. And it's literally doing things at the same time with across the world, Europe and Asia, with very little communication between the two groups at all. So anyway.
I love hearing the names that I've never studied before, like Tamerlane, and one of the Boston Marathon bombers' first name was Tamerlane.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh my God.
I know, so they're named after these people, you know, and my best Indian friend in college was Akbar. I never knew.
Akbar is great. Akbar is the one guy who I think got it all. Like, let's look at more what unites us, and then why nobody else picked up on what he did.
Yeah.
We also have our Akbar.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Praise to Allah.
Yeah, but Akbar.
Yeah, Akbar.
Yeah.
Well, all the sultans are going to take, kind of like a pope, they're going to take an important name of a previous imam, caliph, or sultan. Except for Suleiman, because he's like, look,
I got a hat.
I am, yeah, I got that big,
I got
like,
that.
silk onion hat. I am Suleiman.
Air conditioning unit.
Much better than the Istanbul.
Well, you didn't like Istanbul? No? Oh, man.
And where does Istanbul come from? Where did that name come from?
It means divine heavenly city. And so the first thing they do is they go to the Hagia Sophia and they turn it into a mosque, because it was this cosmopolitan crossroads of the world, and so it was a heavenly city.
Oh, yeah.
I do.